Hello everyone. Welcome back to MindFlow English. I'm Amelia, your host for today. Today, I want to take you on a journey into the hidden side of reading. Because the truth is, most people read every day, but very few truly remember what they read. And if you are learning English, this problem becomes even bigger. You finish a page, a chapter, or even an entire book. And minutes later, the ideas slip away. You cannot explain them. You cannot use them. They simply disappear. But what if remembering everything you read was not about having a perfect memory? What if you could train your mind to hold on to information naturally, almost effortlessly, by using simple English techniques? In this video, we are going to explore exactly how to do that, and you are going to learn it through a smooth, slow, clear English podcast experience that anyone, including beginners, can follow. Before we begin, I want you to imagine this situation. You pick up a book in English. Maybe it is a self-help book, a novel, or a book to improve your vocabulary. You start reading. At first, you feel excited, you feel motivated, you want to learn. But as you move through the pages, something starts to happen. Your attention weakens. Some sentences feel unclear. You read a paragraph again, then again, hoping it will stick. And when you finally close the book, you realize you remember only a small piece of what you just spent hours reading. This experience is very common. Millions of English learners around the world struggle with this every day. But here is the good news. Remembering everything you read is not a special gift. It is a skill you can develop step by step. And today, I will show you the first foundation of that skill. In this first part of our 10-part series, we are going to focus on one powerful idea. Reading is not memorizing. Reading is thinking. When you think deeply while reading, your brain automatically remembers. But when you read passively, without stopping, without questioning, without connecting ideas to your life, your mind simply lets the information go. So, let me guide you through a new way of reading, one that will help you memorize naturally, especially when reading English materials. This technique is called slow active attention, and it begins even before you read the first sentence. Here is how it works. Before you open your book, pause for a moment, close your eyes if you want, and ask yourself a simple question. What do I want to get from this reading? Your answer does not need to be complicated. It could be something like, I want to learn 10 new English words. I want to understand one new idea. I want to finish one chapter with clarity. Setting this small intention activates your mind. It turns your brain from a passive receiver into an active explorer. That one simple thought prepares your memory. Now, once you start reading the first page, read more slowly than you usually do. Many English learners believe reading faster means learning more. But the opposite is true. When you slow down, the information has time to settle. Your attention becomes sharper. And most importantly, your mind begins to build pictures. Let me show you how powerful these mental pictures are. Imagine you read this sentence in a book. Productivity increases when people focus on one task at a time. If you read this sentence quickly, your brain treats it like any other sentence. It enters and it leaves. But if you read slowly and think actively, your brain begins to paint a picture. You might imagine a person at a messy desk with 10 tasks. Then imagine that same person clearing the desk and working on one task with calm focus. That image stays in your mind. And because it stays, the idea stays. Images are one of the strongest memory tools your brain has. When you create pictures while reading English, the language becomes alive, and the meaning becomes unforgettable. Even if you do not remember the exact words, you remember the idea. And that is what truly matters. Another part of slow active attention is asking small questions as you read. You do not need to write anything yet, just think. For example, why is this idea important? How can I use this in my own life? Do I agree or disagree with this point? These questions wake up your memory. They tell your brain that this information matters, and the brain loves to keep information that feels meaningful, personal, and connected to real life. You see, so many English learners read for the sake of finishing the page, but the goal is not to finish. The goal is to understand, remember, and apply. When you switch from finishing to understanding, everything changes. Your English improves faster, your confidence grows, your memory becomes sharper. As we move forward in this series, I will give you more advanced techniques that work even for long books, complex English sentences, and abstract ideas. But for now, slow active attention is the first key. And it is a simple key. Pause before you read. Slow your reading speed. Build mental images. Ask small questions. And let the ideas settle. In the next part, we will move deeper into a method that will transform the way you take notes while reading English. You will learn how to create a personal map of ideas that stays in your memory long after you close the book. It is simple, and anyone can do it, even if your English level is just beginning. This is only the start. Stay with me, and by the end of this 10-part series, your reading comprehension, memory, and English ability will feel completely different. Now let's continue to part 2. In the previous part, we talked about the importance of slow active attention. Today we will explore the second foundation of remembering everything you read in English, building a memory map. A memory map is a simple, powerful technique that helps your brain organize new information, so it stays longer, feels clearer, and becomes easier to use in daily life. And the best part is, you do not need advanced English to create it. Even beginners can use this method and see real results. Before we begin, imagine this situation. You finish reading a chapter in an English book. You understand some ideas, but everything feels a little blurry. When someone asks you, "What did you just read?" you struggle to explain. You remember pieces, but not a full picture. This happens because your mind receives information but does not structure it. A memory map gives your brain that structure. It turns scattered ideas into a clear, organized shape, like a clean desk where everything has its place. Let's begin with the first step of the memory map method, choosing one central idea. Every chapter, every article, and even every podcast usually has one main idea that connects everything. Your task is to identify that idea. Do not worry if your English is not perfect. You just need to understand the main message. For example, imagine you are reading a chapter about improving concentration. The central idea might be, focus grows when we reduce distractions. Simple, clear, easy to remember. Once you find the central idea, write it down in the center of your page. Do not write long sentences, just a short phrase in simple English. This helps your mind anchor the information. When your brain has a center, it can connect new information more easily. Now let's move to the second step, finding the supporting ideas. Supporting ideas are the smaller ideas that explain, develop, or give examples for the central idea. They are like branches growing from the center of a tree. If the central idea is focus grows, when we reduce distractions, the supporting ideas might be remove phone notifications, work in a quiet space, take short breaks, close unnecessary tabs. Each supporting idea should be written around the central idea, like a circle of short notes. This visual shape is important. It helps your brain see relationships instead of isolated pieces of information. Every time you make these small notes, your memory strengthens. But the memory map does not end here. The third step is personal connection. This is where the technique becomes powerful for English learners. Your brain remembers information deeply when it connects to your life. So for each supporting idea, add one sentence that links the idea to your experience. Again, keep it simple. For example, remove phone notifications. My phone distracts me when I read English. Work in a quiet space. I understand better when my room is silent. Take short breaks. I lose focus when I read too long. Close unnecessary tabs. I open too many websites when studying. These personal connections activate your brain's emotional memory. This makes the information not only understandable, but memorable. You are not just reading ideas, you are living them. Now let's talk about why this works so well for English learners. When you create a memory map, you convert English sentences into simple English thoughts. You force your brain to rephrase the content, to summarize it, to repeat it. This repetition is natural and effortless. You are not memorizing word for word. You are understanding the meaning and storing it in a way your mind likes. Memory maps also reduce stress. Many learners feel nervous when they read English books because they worry they will forget everything. But when you use a memory map, you have a clear system. The information does not disappear. You see it on the page. You see the structure. You feel in control. This confidence helps you read more, remember more, and learn faster. Now, let me guide you through a simple example so you can experience the technique right now. Imagine you are reading a short English article titled, "How to Build a Consistent Study Habit." The central idea might be, study habits grow with small daily actions. Supporting ideas could be, choose a fixed study time, start with short sessions, track your progress, remove study obstacles. Then, you add personal connections. Choose a fixed study time. I study best in the morning. Start with short sessions. I can begin with 10 minutes. Track your progress. I feel proud when I see improvement. Remove study obstacles. I will clean my desk before studying. Even if you only spend 5 minutes making this map, your understanding becomes solid. The ideas stay with you, and you can remember the article hours, days, even weeks later. But there is something else. When you create a memory map in English, you are also practicing English writing, vocabulary, and thinking in a natural, simple way. You learn how to express ideas clearly. You learn how to organize thoughts. You learn how to make English part of your daily life. In this series, I want you to develop not only strong memory skills, but strong English skills at the same time. These two abilities grow together. The more you understand, the more you remember. The more you remember, the more confident your English becomes. In the next part, Part 3, we will explore a technique that most people ignore, but it may be the most important step of all. It is called the echo technique. This tool trains your brain to repeat information in a natural rhythm that locks it into memory without feeling like studying. You will learn exactly how to use it for English books, podcasts, and articles. Let's continue to part 3. In the last 2 parts, we explored slow active attention and the memory map, 2 essential foundations for remembering everything you read. Today, in part 3, we move into a technique that is simple but incredibly powerful. A technique that almost no one talks about, even though it is responsible for some of the strongest memory results in language learning. I call it the echo technique. The echo technique is built on a very basic truth about the human brain. We remember what we repeat, but repetition alone is not enough. The way you repeat ideas determines whether they stay for hours or for years. Many English learners repeat words and sentences without emotion, without connection, without rhythm. This kind of repetition is mechanical, and the brain forgets it quickly. The echo technique fixes this. It creates repetition that is meaningful, natural, emotional, and slow enough for your brain to absorb. And the best part is, you can use it with books, podcasts, articles, or anything you read in English. To understand how this works, let's begin with a simple example. Imagine you just read a sentence in an English book. Better understanding comes from slowing down and noticing details. Most learners read this sentence once and move on, but the echo technique invites you to pause for a moment, close the book, and repeat the sentence in your own words in simple English. Something like, "Understanding grows when I pay attention slowly." This is the first echo. It is not the same sentence. It is the same idea, expressed in your voice, your words, your rhythm. And because it is yours, your brain treats it differently. It stores it more deeply. Now, let's add the second echo. After you repeat the idea once, take a few seconds to imagine a situation from your own life where this idea is true. You might say, "When I read too fast, I miss important details. But when I slow down, I understand better." This moment of personal reflection creates the second echo. This echo ties the idea to real life, and your memory becomes even stronger. But there is a third echo, and this is the one that makes the technique truly powerful. After you close the book, after you walk away, after you start doing something else, repeat the idea one more time in your mind. You do not need the exact words, just recall the meaning. This final echo is soft, quick, and natural. It might sound like, "Slow reading helps me understand." These 3 echoes create a pattern your memory cannot ignore. The brain loves repeated meaning, not repeated words, but repeated meaning. That is the secret. Now let's break down the technique step by step so you can use it immediately. Step 1. Read a short section of the text. Do not read too much. Focus on one sentence or one idea at a time. The echo technique works best when the amount of information is small and clear. Step 2. Create your first echo. Close the book, look away, and rephrase the idea in simple English. Do not rush. Use your natural voice. You can whisper it or say it in your mind. The key is to make it your own. Step 3. Create your second echo. Connect the idea to your experience. How is this idea true for you? How can you use it in your daily English learning? This step transforms information into memory. When the brain sees personal meaning, it remembers effortlessly. Step 4. Create the third echo later. After a few minutes, after a small break, recall the idea again. Not the exact words, just the essence. This delayed repetition is what cements the memory in your mind. It is soft, simple, and natural. Now let's look at why this method works so well for English learners. When you read in English, your brain is dealing with two things at the same time: meaning and language. If you try to memorize sentences word for word, your brain becomes overwhelmed. You get tired quickly. You lose motivation. But when you echo ideas in your own words, your brain focuses on meaning first, language second. This reduces stress and increases memory. Another reason this method works is rhythm. Your brain loves rhythm. When you echo ideas with pauses in between, you create a natural rhythm of learning. This rhythm activates the part of the brain responsible for long-term memory. You are not forcing your brain to remember. You are guiding it gently. Here is a practical example to show you how powerful this technique can be. Imagine you are reading a book about building habits, and you find this sentence: "Small changes made every day create big results over time." First echo: big changes come from small daily actions. Second echo: if I practice English 10 minutes every day, I will improve a lot over time. Third echo: later, small daily practice leads to progress. With these three echoes, the idea becomes unforgettable. Even if you close the book and do not look at it for a week, you will still remember the message. Now, let's talk about common mistakes English learners make when using repetition. Many people think repetition means saying something many times quickly. But fast repetition is weak repetition. The brain does not absorb information under pressure. Slow repetition is deep repetition. That is why each echo should feel calm, natural, and unforced. Another mistake is repeating words instead of ideas. You do not need to memorize the exact English sentence. You just need to remember what it means. The meaning stays longer, and as your English improves, your ability to repeat with better words grows naturally. You might be asking, how often should I use the echo technique? The answer is simple. Use it every time you read something you want to remember. You do not need to echo every sentence, just the important ones, the ones that matter, the ones that teach you something. With time, the echo technique becomes automatic. You will find yourself echoing ideas naturally throughout the day. You will think more deeply. You will speak more clearly. You will understand more quickly. And your English will improve in a way that feels effortless. In the next part, Part 4, we are going to explore another powerful technique called the bridge method. This method teaches you how to connect new English information to ideas you already know, making memory stronger and reading much easier. Now let's continue to Part 4. In the last part, we explored the echo technique, a method that uses meaningful repetition to help you remember what you read. Today, in Part 4, we will move into another powerful method that transforms how your memory works. It is called the bridge method. This technique helps you connect new information to ideas you already know, creating strong mental pathways that make English reading clearer, easier, and far more memorable. To understand why the bridge method is essential, imagine this. Your brain is like a large city filled with thousands of streets, buildings, and connections. Every idea you already understand is like a building that already exists. But new ideas, especially in English, are like new buildings under construction. If you do not connect them to the city's existing roads, they stand alone and are easy to forget. But if you build bridges between the new building and the rest of the city, it becomes part of the system. It stays. It survives. It becomes a permanent part of your knowledge. That is what the bridge method does. It connects. Many English learners struggle because they treat new information as something unrelated to their lives, their experiences, their thoughts, and their knowledge. They read English like they are collecting puzzle pieces, but never putting them together. The bridge method changes this by teaching you to link every new idea to something familiar. When your brain sees a connection, the memory becomes stronger and more meaningful. Let's begin with the first step of the bridge method. Identify the new idea. When you read a chapter, a paragraph, or even a simple sentence in English, pause for a moment and find the one idea that feels important or new to you. It could be a concept, a fact, a suggestion, or a piece of advice. It does not need to be complicated. Even a simple idea can make a strong bridge. For example, imagine you are reading a book about personal development, and you find this idea: progress grows when you track your daily habits. This is your new idea, your new building. Now it needs a bridge. The second step is to find something you already know about the idea. This is where many learners skip too quickly. But take your time. Ask yourself, have I ever heard something similar before? Have I experienced something like this? Does this idea remind me of something in my life? Maybe you remember hearing that successful people often keep journals. Or maybe you recall a time when you improved your English because you studied consistently. These previous experiences become the foundation for your bridge. For example, you might say, I remember improving my English vocabulary faster when I wrote down the words every day. This familiar experience is the older building in your mental city. Now let's move to the third step. Build the bridge. A bridge is simply a sentence or two that connects the new idea to your past experience or knowledge. You do not need to write a long explanation. Just a simple connection is enough. For example, tracking habits works because it makes me more aware of my progress. I improved before when I tracked vocabulary, so this idea makes sense. This connection is the bridge. And now your brain sees the new idea not as something isolated, but as something meaningful, something related to your life and your learning journey. The fourth step is reinforcement. Reinforcement means you repeat the bridge in a simple way using your own voice. You can do this quietly in your mind, or you can whisper it out loud. You can also write it at the bottom of your memory map if you want to combine techniques. A simple reinforcement might be, tracking habits helped me before, so it can help me again. This statement strengthens the bridge. It tells your brain the information is useful and important, and because it is meaningful, your brain holds on to it. Now, let's look at why the bridge method works so well for English learners. When you learn a new English idea without a connection, your brain treats it like a random fact, something temporary, something easy to remove. But when you connect the idea to something familiar, the brain feels safe. It understands the meaning faster, it remembers longer, and it learns English in a more natural human way. This method is also incredibly helpful for beginners. Many learners think they cannot understand complex English ideas because of their level. But that is not true. When you connect new English ideas to your own thoughts, you simplify them. You turn complex ideas into simple personal ideas. You translate them not into your native language, but into your own understanding. Let's go through a complete example together. Imagine you are reading an English article titled, How to Stay Motivated While Learning English. You find this new idea. Motivation grows when you reward yourself after study sessions. Now you search your mind for something familiar. You might remember a time when you enjoyed learning more. Because you allowed yourself to take a short break afterward. Or maybe you remember how rewarding yourself helped you stay consistent with exercise. Then you build the bridge. Rewarding myself works because it makes learning feel enjoyable. When I took short breaks after studying vocabulary, I felt more motivated. Finally, you reinforce the bridge. Rewards help me stay motivated. This whole process takes less than a minute, but it gives your memory something strong to hold on to. And there is another powerful benefit. The bridge method improves your English speaking skills. Every time you connect ideas, you practice expressing thoughts clearly. You learn to explain, to compare, to connect concepts naturally. This is one of the most important skills in advanced English, and you can develop it even as a beginner. Many learners try to remember things by reading the same sentence over and over. But the truth is, memory is not about exposure. It is about connection. When you build a bridge, you create meaning, and meaning is what stays. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake people make when reading English: reading without thinking. They read to finish, not to understand. But if you slow down and build a bridge for each important idea, reading becomes a deep learning experience. You begin to understand English books in a way that stays with you forever. In the next part, Part 5, we will explore a technique that works perfectly with the bridge method. It is called the spaced memory loop, a simple system that helps you review information at the perfect time, so your memory becomes stronger without wasting effort. This method will help you remember English concepts days, weeks, and even months after reading them. Now let's continue to Part 5. In the previous part, we explored the bridge method, a powerful way to connect new ideas to information you already know. Today, in Part 5, we will move into a method that strengthens everything we have learned so far. A method that helps you remember English ideas, not only today, not only tomorrow, but weeks and even months into the future. This technique is called the spaced memory loop. The spaced memory loop is based on one simple truth. Your brain forgets information when it does not see it again. But your brain also becomes stronger when it reviews information at the right time, in the right way, with the right amount of attention. This technique uses timing to help memory grow, without pressure, without stress, and without forcing yourself to study for long hours. Before we begin, let me share something important. Many English learners think that reviewing information means repeating everything again and again. They read the same chapter 3, 4, 5 times. They rewrite vocabulary lists. They rewatch videos. They study for hours. And still, they forget. The problem is not effort. The problem is timing. If you review information too early, the brain sees no challenge. If you review too late, the brain has already forgotten the information. The spaced memory loop solves this by creating the perfect review rhythm. Let's begin with step 1, the first loop. The first loop happens right after you read something important in English. You pause, you think. You apply one of the earlier techniques, like the echo technique or the bridge method. This is your first review, and it happens instantly. This quick review tells your brain, this information matters. Store it. Pay attention to it. Now we move to step 2, the short loop. The short loop happens a few minutes after your first loop. This is not a long study session. It is a very soft recall. You simply think about what you read. You do not open the book again. You do not force yourself to remember every detail. You just recall the main idea or the main meaning. The short loop might sound like this in your mind. The main idea was that small, consistent actions lead to progress. Or, the book said that focus improves when I remove distractions. This small review signals to the brain again. Keep this information. It is still important. Now we move to step 3, the daily loop. This loop happens one day later, not hours later, not a week later, exactly one day later. You take 1 or 2 minutes to think about what you read yesterday. At this stage, you can open your memory map if you want, but you do not have to. The goal is not to repeat everything. The goal is to remember the structure. You might think, yesterday I read about the technique for staying focused. The central idea was slow attention. The supporting ideas were removing notifications, reading slowly, and asking questions. This daily loop makes the memory stronger, like a muscle being exercised gently. Now we move to step 4, the weekly loop. 1 week later, you return to the same idea. This is where the magic happens. Your brain has had time to forget a little, but not too much. When you recall the idea again, the memory becomes deeper, stronger, and more permanent. You can review by reading your memory map for 30 seconds, or by simply repeating the idea in your mind. For example, the chapter about focus taught me that mental images help memory. Or, the article about motivation said that rewards increase consistency. This weekly loop is responsible for long-term retention. It takes only a moment, but the impact is huge. The final step is step 5, the monthly loop. 1 month later, you return to the idea one more time. This is the final strengthening stage. After this point, the idea becomes part of your long-term knowledge. You do not need to try remembering it. Your brain will store it naturally. You only need to think, this idea is still useful to me. I can still use it. I still understand it. The monthly loop seals the memory. Let's put this all together so you can see how simple this system is. First loop, immediately after reading. Short loop, a few minutes later. Daily loop, 1 day later. Weekly loop, 1 week later. Monthly loop, 1 month later. This rhythm helps your brain remember naturally. You do not need long study hours. You do not need complicated tools. You only need small moments of attention, spaced at the right intervals. Now let's talk about how to apply the spaced memory loop, specifically for English learning. When you read an English book, podcast transcript, or article, you choose only the most important ideas. Not every sentence needs a loop. Choose the top 3 ideas. These are the ones you want to remember. Then use the spaced memory loop to keep these ideas alive in your mind. For example, imagine you read an English article about improving pronunciation. You want to remember these 3 ideas. Speak slowly and clearly. Practice shadowing native speakers. Record your voice to hear your mistakes. Now you use the loop. First loop, immediately repeat the ideas in your own words. Short loop, think about them again 5 minutes later. Daily loop, recall them the next day. Weekly loop, review them 1 week later. Monthly loop, remind yourself 1 month later. After 1 month, these ideas become part of your speaking habits. You remember them naturally. Your pronunciation improves, and you did not have to force anything. This method also reduces stress. English learners often feel pressure to remember everything. They worry that forgetting is a sign of failure. But forgetting is normal. Forgetting is natural. Forgetting is how the brain makes space for new information. The spaced memory loop works with your brain, not against it. It respects the brain's natural forgetting cycle and uses it to make memory stronger. This method will also help you with confidence. When you know that you will review ideas at the right time, you stop worrying. You stop feeling guilty about forgetting. You stop stressing about reading fast. Instead, you read with focus. You learn with calmness. You remember with clarity. Many English learners read a book and forget most of it after a week, but learners who use the spaced memory loop remember the key ideas for life. They can explain them. They can use them. They can teach them. They understand deeply, not temporarily. In the next part, Part 6, we will explore a method that works hand in hand with spaced memory and will take your English reading skills to the next level. It is called the active output method. This technique teaches you how to speak, write, and think using the ideas you read, so your memory becomes even stronger and your English improves naturally. Now let's move to Part 6. In the previous part, we explored the spaced memory loop, a powerful timing system that helps you remember English ideas for weeks, months, and even years. Today, in Part 6, we move into a technique that transforms memory from passive understanding into active skill. It is called the active output method. This method teaches you how to take the ideas you read and use them in your speaking, writing, thinking, and daily English practice. When you use information actively, your memory becomes stronger and your English improves faster than you ever expected. Before we begin, I want you to imagine this simple moment. You finish reading a chapter in an English book. You understand the ideas. You remember the key message. But then, a friend asks you, "What was the chapter about?" Suddenly, your mind freezes. You know the ideas, but you cannot explain them clearly in English. This happens to many learners, even advanced ones. The reason is simple. You stored the idea passively, but you never practiced expressing it. Understanding is not the same as communicating. The active output method fixes this. It teaches you to transform English input into English output. Let's break this technique down into simple steps so you can use it immediately. The first step is the micro summary. A micro summary is a short explanation of what you just read, using simple English and your own words. You are not translating. You are not copying. You are expressing the meaning in the clearest, easiest way. This step is important because it teaches your brain how to compress information. When you compress, you remember. For example, imagine you read a chapter about staying focused while learning English. The micro summary might be, the chapter says that focus improves when I slow down, remove distractions, and pay attention to details. This summary is short, clear, and personal. It forces your brain to understand the idea deeply enough to express it. Now let's move to the second step. The two-sentence output. This step is simple. You take the idea you learned and create 2 English sentences that apply the idea to your life. These sentences are not summaries. They are actions, reflections, or decisions based on the idea. For example, you might write, "When I study English, I will silence my phone so I can focus better. I will read more slowly and try to notice important details." These 2 sentences connect the idea to your real life. This step strengthens memory and improves your writing and thinking skills. But more importantly, it gives you confidence. You do not just understand the idea, you can use it. Now let's move to the third step, the speaking output. This is where the technique becomes transformative. After creating your micro summary and your 2-sentence output, you speak the idea out loud. You can speak to yourself, record your voice, or explain the idea to a friend. The goal is not perfection. The goal is expression. The goal is to train your mouth, your voice, your memory, and your English thinking, all at the same time. You might say something like this: I learned that focus improves when I remove distractions and slow down. For me, this means I need to study in a quiet place and read more carefully. Speaking creates a deeper level of memory. Words become action. Action becomes confidence. Confidence becomes fluency. Let me share why the speaking output step is so important. Reading is input, listening is input, watching English videos is input, but memory becomes strong only when you produce output. When you speak, your brain reorganizes the information. It searches for the right words. It activates your language center. It creates new pathways. That process builds long-term memory. Many learners make the mistake of focusing only on input. They read, they listen, they watch, but they cannot speak clearly about what they learn. This method solves that problem. Every time you read, you also speak. You use the idea. You own it. Now let's move to the 4th step, the reflection output. This step is deeper and more personal. You ask yourself one important question: why does this idea matter to me? Write or speak 1 or 2 sentences that answer this question. This step connects emotion to memory, and emotion is one of the strongest tools for remembering English ideas. For example, this idea matters to me because I often lose focus when studying English. If I improve my focus, I will learn faster and feel more confident. This emotional connection is a powerful memory anchor. The brain remembers what feels important, meaningful, personal, and connected to goals. Now let's look at why the active output method works so well for English learners. First, it activates all parts of your learning system: reading, writing, speaking, and thinking. When all 4 skills work together, your memory becomes extremely strong. Second, it teaches you how to express ideas in English, not just understand them. This is the step that moves you from learner to communicator. Third, it makes every reading session productive. Instead of reading passively, you leave with a clear summary, a personal plan, a spoken explanation, and an emotional connection. Fourth, it builds confidence. When you can explain an idea clearly in English, you feel capable, intelligent, and motivated. That confidence helps you continue learning with more energy. Let's go through a full example so you can see exactly how to use this method. Imagine you read a short English article called "How to Stay Motivated While Learning English." New idea. Motivation grows when you make learning enjoyable. Micro summary. The article says that enjoying learning helps you stay motivated and stay consistent. 2-sentence output. I will choose English materials that I enjoy, like podcasts and stories. I will stop forcing myself to use boring resources. Speaking output. I learned that motivation becomes stronger when learning is enjoyable. For me, this means choosing English content I like, so I feel excited instead of stressed. Reflection output. This idea matters because I want to enjoy learning English, not feel pressure every day. Enjoyment will help me stay consistent. This whole process takes only a few minutes, but the memory becomes strong, and the English becomes active. You can use the active output method for books, podcasts, articles, lectures, videos, and any English learning material. You can even combine it with the memory map, the echo technique, and the bridge method to build a complete learning system. In the next part, Part 7, we will explore a technique that helps you understand complex English ideas effortlessly. It is called the layer reading method. This method teaches you how to read English texts in layers, from simple to deep, so you never feel overwhelmed and always understand what you read. Now let's continue to Part 7. In the previous lesson, you learned the active output method, a strategy that transforms English ideas from passive understanding into active communication. Today, in Part 7, we move into a technique that will completely change the way you read English. It is called the layer reading method. This method helps you understand even complex texts with ease, without feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, or lost. Most English learners read in only one way, from the first sentence to the last, trying to understand everything at the same time. This method is stressful, slow, and ineffective. The layer reading method fixes this by teaching you to read in clear, simple layers. Each layer has a purpose. Each layer builds deeper understanding. Let's begin with a simple idea. You do not need to understand everything at once. Understanding grows layer by layer. Now, imagine English reading as a staircase. Each step raises your understanding. You move from simple recognition to deep comprehension. Let's walk through each layer together. Layer 1. The surface scan. This layer is simple. You read the text quickly, without stopping, without checking unknown words, and without worrying about details. The only goal is to get a feeling for the topic. It might take just 20-40 seconds. Your mind might say, "I don't know that word. That sentence is confusing. This doesn't make sense yet." That is okay. You keep going. You do not fight the confusion. You accept it. This layer prepares your brain. It activates your background knowledge. It reduces fear. It builds confidence by showing you the text is not as scary as it looks. Think of it like looking at a map before a journey. You do not need to memorize every street. You just want to see the shape of the city. Layer 2. The core meaning layer. Now you read again, but this time with a clear goal. Find the main message of each paragraph. You still do not worry about difficult words. Instead, you ask one question. What is the writer trying to say here? You can underline sentences, write notes, or simply think about the big ideas. This layer builds structure in your mind. You start to see the shape of the text, the flow, the direction, and the purpose. Imagine you are looking at a forest. Layer 1 shows you the whole forest. Layer 2 helps you see where the main paths are. Layer 3, the detail layer. Now you zoom in, slowly, carefully, and confidently. You focus on the important details. Examples, explanations, key vocabulary. If you meet a difficult sentence, you read it slowly. If you meet a new word, you check the meaning, but only when necessary. You look at how the details support the main ideas from layer 2. This layer is where real comprehension grows. It turns a general understanding into a deep one. Layer 4. The connection layer. Now you ask deeper questions. Why did the writer use this example? How does this idea connect to the previous one? What is the message behind the message? You begin to read like a thinker, not just a reader. This layer improves your critical thinking and your ability to discuss English ideas clearly. You are not just reading the text, you are interacting with it. Layer 5. The expression layer. This is where you turn understanding into skill. You express what you read using your own English. This is the perfect moment to use the active output method from part 6. You create a micro summary, a 2-sentence output, a speaking output, a reflection output. This layer is essential. Without expression, memory weakens. With expression, memory becomes solid and permanent. Why the layer reading method works? There are 4 big reasons this method is so powerful. Reason 1. It removes overwhelm. You never try to understand everything at once. Reason 2. It builds confidence. You start with simple understanding and grow gradually. Reason 3. It respects how the brain learns. The brain learns in layers, not in one heavy block. Reason 4. It improves long-term memory. Each layer reinforces the previous one. You are no longer reading like a student. You are reading like a strategist. A simple example. Imagine you are reading a difficult English article about climate change. Layer 1. Fast scan. You understand almost nothing. Layer 2. You understand the main idea. The article is about causes and solutions. Layer 3. You understand details like examples of pollution and scientific evidence. Layer 4. You start to understand the writer's deeper message. Humans must take responsibility. Layer 5. You express the idea in your own English through summaries and sentences. Most learners stay stuck between confusion and frustration. But with layers, understanding becomes clear, calm, and confident. How to practice this method? Choose any English text you want, a book chapter, a news article, a podcast transcript, and read it in layers. Do not rush. Do not pressure yourself. Do not expect perfection. Expect clarity. Expect growth. Expect deeper understanding each time. In the next lesson, Part 8, we will explore a technique that helps you think in English naturally. This technique trains your brain to stop translating and start forming English ideas automatically. It is called the parallel thought method, and it is one of the most powerful mental tools in the MindFlow system. Now let's continue to Part 8. In the last part, you learned the layer reading method, a powerful system that helps you understand English texts through calm, clear, step-by-step layers. Today, in Part 8, we move into one of the most transformative techniques in the entire MindFlow system. It is called the parallel thought method. This method teaches your brain to think in English naturally, without translating, without forcing, and without feeling mentally tired. When you understand this technique, your reading becomes smoother, your listening becomes faster, and your speaking becomes clearer. Most English learners think that thinking in English is something advanced learners do automatically. But the truth is, thinking in English is a skill, a trained habit, and the parallel thought method is the direct path to developing this habit, even if you are a beginner. Let's begin with a simple truth. Your brain can hold 2 versions of an idea at the same time, one in your language and one in English. The problem is, most learners only use the version in their language. They read in English, but their mind translates every sentence back to their native language. This creates delay, confusion, and brain fatigue. The parallel thought method teaches your brain to build a second version, the English version, at the same time. You do not replace your language. Instead, you grow English thinking parallel to it. Let's break this down step by step. Step 1. Identify the core thought. A core thought is the simplest message behind a sentence. For example, if the sentence is, "When you create a habit, consistency is more important than intensity," The core thought is, consistency matters more than intensity. This core message is usually simple and clear. You do not translate it. You extract it. You focus on meaning, not perfect grammar. This step trains your brain to shorten ideas, which makes them easier to hold in English. Step 2. Create the parallel English version. Now you express the same idea in simple English. Your English, not the writer's English. For example, consistency is the key. Small actions every day work better than big actions sometimes. You say it in English, think it in English, write it in English, using words you already know. This step builds confidence. You do not try to sound advanced. You try to sound clear. The simpler your English, the stronger your thinking foundation becomes. Step 3. Hold both versions for 2 seconds. This is the core of the method. You hold the idea in 2 versions, the simplified English version and the original English sentence, for just 2 seconds. Why 2 seconds? Because it creates a small mental bridge. Your brain begins to connect idea, English thought, English sentence. This is how you stop translating. You create an English pathway in your mind. Your brain begins to recognize English meaning directly, instead of going through your native language. Step 4. Release your language and keep the English version. After holding both versions for 2 seconds, you release the version in your language. You let it go. You keep only the English version in your mind. Even if the English feels simple, that is perfect. Simplicity is the power of this method. Your brain learns by repeating simple structures, not complex ones. This step trains you to think in English without forcing yourself. You are not pushing the English version. You are letting the native language version fade away naturally. Step 5. Attach a micro-emotion. This is what makes the technique extremely powerful for memory. You attach a tiny emotion to the English version. It can be curiosity, surprise, agreement, disagreement, or recognition. For example, that makes sense. That is interesting. I didn't know that. I agree with this. That's new. Why? Because your memory follows emotion. Even a small emotion makes your brain hold the idea longer and deeper. This step transforms English thoughts into natural mental habits. Why the parallel thought method works so well? There are 3 scientific reasons this method is incredibly effective. Reason 1. It reduces mental friction. Translating creates stress, delay, and confusion. Parallel thinking removes translation and replaces it with direct understanding. Reason 2. It trains neural pathways. Every time you switch from your language to English, you build automatic thinking circuits. After enough repetition, English thinking becomes effortless. Reason 3. It builds confidence. When your mind starts forming English ideas naturally, your fear of speaking and reading disappears. You begin to see English not as a foreign language, but as a thinking tool. A simple demonstration. Let's practice with a sentence right now. Sentence. Reading becomes easier when you actively organize information. Step 1. Core thought. Organizing information makes reading easier. Step 2. Parallel English version. I understand better when I organize ideas. Step 3. Hold both versions for 2 seconds. Step 4. Release your language. Keep the English thought. Step 5. Micro-emotion. That is true for me. This takes only 5 to 7 seconds, but repeated many times, it rewires how your brain processes English. Practice exercise. Choose a sentence from any English book or podcast. Follow the 5 steps. Do it slowly, calmly, and consistently. Just 5 minutes a day will completely transform your English thinking process. In the next lesson, Part 9, we will explore a technique that multiplies your memory speed by changing how you interact with English stories, examples, and explanations. This technique is called story shadowing, and it is one of the most powerful tools for remembering everything you read and hear, especially in podcasts. Now let's continue to Part 9. In the previous part, you learned the parallel thought method, a powerful tool that trains your brain to think in English naturally, without translation. Today, in Part 9, we move into a technique that accelerates your memory, strengthens your pronunciation, improves your listening, and transforms the way you connect with English stories. This method is called story shadowing. Story shadowing is not the typical shadowing technique you may have heard about. Traditional shadowing asks you to repeat English immediately after hearing it, which can feel stressful, fast, and unnatural, especially for beginners. But story shadowing is different. It is gentle, it is slow, it is emotional, and it works with the natural way your brain remembers stories. Why stories? Because stories are the most powerful memory tool humans have. Before books, before writing, before schools, people learned through stories. Our brains are designed to remember characters, emotions, movements, conflicts, and resolutions. When you shadow a story, you are not only repeating English, you are experiencing English. Let's begin by breaking the technique into 4 clear stages. Stage 1, emotional listening. This is the foundation of story shadowing. You do not repeat yet. You do not imitate yet. You simply listen to the story once, but with emotional attention. When I say emotional attention, I mean noticing the feelings inside the story. Who is the story about? What emotion they feel? What problem they face? What fear, desire, or motivation is present? For example, imagine a short story from a podcast. A student tries to read an English book, but she keeps getting distracted. She feels frustrated and wants to change. When you listen emotionally, you don't just hear words, you feel the frustration. You understand the desire for change. This emotion activates your memory system. It prepares your brain to remember phrases, structures, and vocabulary automatically. Stage 2, soft shadowing. Soft shadowing is the gentle version of shadowing. You whisper or speak quietly, 2 or 3 seconds after the voice. You are not trying to match speed. You are not trying to copy every detail. You are simply following the story like an echo, but slower. This step does something magical. It helps your brain feel the rhythm, tone, and shape of English sentences without pressure. You can imagine you are walking behind someone on a path. You are not trying to walk at the same speed. You are simply following their footsteps. Soft shadowing builds pronunciation familiarity, sentence pattern awareness, natural flow, memory strength. You are training your voice, your ears, and your mind at the same time. Stage 3, emotional reconstruction. Now you retell the same story, but in your own words, in simple English, with natural emotion. You do not have to be perfect. You do not need long sentences. You do not need advanced vocabulary. You simply reconstruct the story using your own English voice. For example, the girl tries to read an English book. She cannot focus. She feels upset. She wants to improve. This is your version. Short, simple, clear, correct for your level. Why is this step important? Because when you reconstruct a story, your brain reorganizes the information. This activates deep memory. You remember the story not through memorization, but through ownership. You transform the story into something that belongs to you. Stage 4, micro-performance. This is where the technique becomes powerful. You retell the story one more time, but with slightly stronger emotion and slightly clearer pronunciation. You treat it like a micro-performance. You do not need a big voice. You do not need to act dramatically. You just add a little more presence, a little more clarity, a little more energy. This step activates long-term memory, emotional memory, vocal confidence, natural fluency. When your voice becomes stronger, your memory becomes stronger. When your emotion becomes clearer, your English becomes clearer. This is how children learn storytelling naturally, through repeated emotional retelling. This is how your English memory becomes powerful and lasting. Why story shadowing works. There are 4 psychological reasons this technique works so well. Reason 1. Emotional encoding. Your brain remembers emotional stories far more easily than neutral information. Reason 2. Multisensory activation. You use your ears, your voice, your memory, your imagination, and your emotions at the same time. This creates strong memory connections. Reason 3. Repetition without boredom. You repeat the story, but each repetition feels fresh because you change the perspective. Reason 4. Natural fluency development. Fluency is not built from grammar books. Fluency is built from repeated expression of meaningful ideas. Story shadowing gives you exactly that. Practical example. Let's practice a small story together. Original story. A boy wants to improve his English speaking. He feels shy. Every time he speaks, he gets nervous. One day he records himself speaking for 1 minute. He listens and he smiles. It is not perfect, but it is progress. Stage 1. Emotional listening. Feel his shyness. Feel his nervousness. Feel his pride at the end. Stage 2. Soft shadowing. Follow 2 or 3 seconds behind. Stage 3. Emotional reconstruction. The boy wants to speak English better. He is shy and nervous. One day, he records himself. He listens. He feels happy. Stage 4. Micro-performance. Retell it with clear emotion, calm voice, and smooth flow. This small story becomes part of your memory, not because you memorized it, but because you lived it. How to practice story shadowing daily. Choose short podcast clips or story segments. 1 to 3 minutes is enough. Practice the 4 stages: emotional listening, soft shadowing, emotional reconstruction, micro-performance. Just 5 to 10 minutes per day will dramatically improve your English memory and fluency. In the next part, Part 10, we will explore the final technique in this series, a technique that combines every method you learned so far into one powerful system. It is called memory looping, and it is designed to help you remember everything you read, hear, and study in English with long-lasting clarity. Now let's continue to Part 10. This is the final part of our series. You have learned powerful techniques for remembering everything you read, everything you hear, and everything you study in English. But today, in Part 10, we bring all the techniques together into one complete system. This final technique is called memory looping, a method that transforms temporary understanding into long-term retention. Memory looping connects every skill you have learned. Slow active attention, memory mapping, the echo technique, layer, reading parallel, thought active output, Story shadowing. Each technique is strong on its own, but when you combine them, your memory becomes unstoppable. You understand English faster, you remember it longer, and you use it more confidently. Let's go step by step and build the full memory loop. What is memory looping? Memory looping is a structured cycle that your brain follows to absorb information deeply. Instead of studying once and forgetting, you come back to the same idea several times, but each time with a different technique. Think of memory looping like watering a plant. One drop is not enough. 4 or 5 small drops over time make the plant strong. Your memory works the same way. Small spaced interactions with the same idea are far more powerful than one long study session. Memory looping uses 5 loops. Each loop has a purpose. Each loop strengthens your understanding. Let's begin. Loop 1. The first impression. Loop. This loop creates your first connection to the idea. You use slow active attention to enter the reading calmly. You scan the text lightly. You open your mind without stress. In this stage, you do not try to memorize anything. You simply let the idea appear. You give your brain a friendly introduction to the information. This loop builds curiosity, and curiosity activates memory. Loop 2. The structure. Loop. Now your task is to understand the idea clearly. You use the memory map and layer reading method. You extract the central idea, the supporting ideas, the connections, the examples. You build a simple map. You see the structure. You understand the flow. This loop transforms confusion into clarity. Loop 3. The echo loop. This loop deepens memory through repetition with rhythm. You use the echo technique here. You choose important sentences or ideas and echo them. Short echo, delayed echo, emotion. Echo. The goal is not to memorize word for word. The goal is to repeat with purpose. Your brain begins to store the message effortlessly. This loop transforms clarity into familiarity. Loop 4. The expression loop. This is where the idea becomes active inside your mind. You use active output, parallel thought, and story shadowing. You express the idea in your own voice. You summarize it. You speak it. You reflect on it. You rebuild the story or concept with your own English. This is the most powerful loop of all. The moment you express the idea, you own it. Your memory becomes personal. Your learning becomes emotional. This loop transforms familiarity into ownership. Loop 5. The reinforcement loop. This last loop makes the memory long-lasting. You return to the idea briefly, after a small break, 1 hour later, 1 day later, 1 week later. But here is the key. You do not restudy everything. You only reconnect with the idea through a short review. Reading your memory map, repeating your micro summary, shadowing a small section, doing a quick parallel thought exercise, just 60 to 90 seconds, is enough. This loop strengthens the memory roots. Repetition becomes retention. This loop transforms ownership into long-term memory. How all 5 loops work together. Let's imagine you read a chapter about building confidence in English. Loop 1. You scan the chapter and feel curious. Loop 2. You map the structure and understand the main ideas. Loop 3. You echo important lines to strengthen memory. Loop 4. You express the ideas in your own English. Loop 5. You revisit the idea briefly, over time. After these loops, you do not just remember the chapter, you master it. You carry the ideas with you everywhere. They become part of your thinking. This is how memory looping transforms your English learning from temporary to permanent. Why memory looping works for English learners. Memory looping is especially powerful for English learners because it reduces stress. It makes reading easier. It repeats information in multiple ways. It activates emotional memory. It builds natural English thinking. It connects reading, listening, speaking, and writing. It helps beginners and advanced learners equally. It makes learning enjoyable instead of exhausting. When you use memory looping consistently, English becomes not just something you study, it becomes something you live. How to use memory looping daily. Choose one English input each day. A podcast, a book page, a short article, a video transcript. Apply the loops. First impression structure, echo expression reinforcement. It only takes 10 to 20 minutes, but the effect is massive. Your memory becomes stronger. Your English becomes smoother. Your confidence becomes real. Your final MindFlow English message. You now have a complete system for remembering everything you read, hear, and learn in English. This is more than a study technique. This is a transformation of how your brain works. If you continue using these techniques, even a little each day, your English will grow faster than you ever imagined. Your memory will feel sharper. Your thoughts will become clearer. Your progress will become unstoppable. And I, Amelia, your guide from MindFlow English, am proud of the journey you have completed. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a new level of English learning. Now go forward, practice the loops, trust the process, and remember, your mind is capable of extraordinary things when you give it the right method. Thank you for staying with me through all 10 parts. Keep flowing, keep growing. MindFlow English will always be here to guide you. Thank you so much for spending this time learning with me. Keep practicing every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Your effort will bring big results over time. And most importantly, enjoy the journey. You are not just learning English, you are becoming an English speaker. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the MindFlow English, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future lessons. I'll see you in the next practice. Keep believing in yourself and keep speaking with confidence.